So welcome. This is the first public meeting of the New Mix project. And the reason we're here today is to provide an overview of the project. I want to start though by saying that some people might think that the construction going on the I-84 Route 8 interchange, also called the Mix Master, they might think that that construction is the New Mix program. It is not. That is actually a rehab program, which is going to allow the interchange to remain in a state of good repair for approximately the next 25 years. The New Mix program is planning for the long-term future of the interchange. It is the Connecticut Department of Transportation's planning for the future of the interchange. And at this meeting, we will outline the past, current, future steps for the project and the type of input we are seeking from the public. Next, please. And again, welcome. And next, just a little quick refresher on Zoom, in case you don't know. If you'd like to unmute, you simply go to the bottom and hit the microphone icon, click it, and it'll unmute, click it again, and it'll mute. We ask that you remain muted until the Q&A session. If you would like to start video and be on camera, same thing. You go to the camera icon, click on it to be on, and then click again if you'd like to turn it off. There's no reason you don't have to be on camera, it's a choice. To chat, you click on the dialogue icon and it'll pop open a chat bar and you simply type your message there and hit enter or send. You can select to send your message to everyone at the meeting or to the host. And then finally, at the end, when we have the Q&A session, if you'd like to raise your hand, you would go to the bottom of the screen and click on the reactions icon and simply click on hand, and it'll show the hosts that your hand is raised and you have a question to ask. So we aren't taking questions until the end of the presentation. However, we want you to feel free. I'm sure you're going to think of many questions as we go through this presentation. Feel free to put those questions in the chat and we will get to them at the end. So this meeting has real-time translation in Spanish and Portuguese, and this, when we hit play, we'll just give a quick overview of how to access that.
Today's presentation provides real-time translation in Spanish or in Brazilian Portuguese. To select one of these languages for real-time translation, simply move your cursor to the bottom of your screen and click on the interpretation icon. When you do, this will pop up, and then you simply select the language you would like, Spanish or Portuguese. You don't need to click English if you want to continue listening in English.
So just a little housekeeping. Please be sure to use respectful language during this meeting. I'm sure everybody will. Definitely, please remain muted until the Q&A session at the end, and even then, remain muted unless you're the one who's speaking. If we have a long line of questions at the end, at the Q&A session, we will initially limit each person 2 minutes of speaking or question time, just so that we can get to everybody. And then once we do get through everybody and there's time, we will go back around. We're not trying to limit anyone's comments. We just want to make sure everybody who wants to speak has the chance to. Next, please. So now I will turn it over to Jonathan Dean from the Connecticut Department of Transportation.
Thanks, Anna. As Anna just mentioned, my name is John Dean. I'm with the Connecticut Department of Transportation. Just going to quickly introduce the members of our team that are on this call. Neil Patel is the principal engineer of Highway Design Major Projects Unit that's overseeing this project. Scott Roberts is our project manager. And as he's retiring at the end of this month, I'm going to be stepping into his role. Joe Belrose is our project engineer. HNTB Corporation is our prime consultant. They're kind of leading a team of consultants to perform this study. Jake Argiro is the project manager. David Schweitzer is deputy project manager. Chris Fagan, project engineer. Naomi Hodges is the environmental lead. And Anna Mariotti is our public involvement specialist. Okay, thanks. Back to you, Anna.
Thank you. I think Jake, if you'd like to briefly introduce the agenda.
Thanks, Anna. And good afternoon. As Anna said, I am HNTB's project manager. And today we'd like to introduce the New Mix project, which is a planning for the long-term future of the I-84 Route 8 interchange, commonly known as the Mixmaster. So today we're going to provide an overview of how ConnDOT is embarking on the New Mix project, including why, the lifespan and deficiencies of the current interchange, the how, the process, which is to be used to analyze the reconstruction options, as well as the when, the tentative general timeframe of the overall project. So if we go to the next slide, I'm going to hand it back over to Anna, who's going to walk us through the public involvement process.
So the Connecticut Department of Transportation, ConnDOT for short, has taken the time to develop a thoughtful approach to be sure to be inclusive in its outreach for this project. There's a variety of ways in which people can learn about the project and provide their input. These include stakeholder group outreach, which we did a little while ago. Stakeholders are different than the public in that a stakeholder represents the interests of their organization as opposed to their own interests. So a stakeholders would include environmental groups that send a representative, the hospitals that send a representative. Those are stakeholders. And from the stakeholders, we created something called a Project Advisory Committee, or PAC for short. This committee is composed of stakeholders, a variety of which are on the left-hand side of your slide. They meet generally once a month for about an hour and a half. And they have, they're more involved in the details of the study, and they provide input. But it's important to note that any input we get, whether it's from the public, whether it's from a question or comment on the website or a PAC member, is all weighed the same. So in addition to the PAC committee, we do have, of course, public meetings. This is the first one. And for people who hopefully will be able to join the public meetings, but next slide, please. If you cannot join the public meetings, it's okay, because every meeting will be recorded, and the recording of the meeting and the presentation used will be put on the New Mix website. So you won't have to miss information just because you weren't able to make a meeting. You can also go to the website to sign up for email newsletters, which will give you notice of upcoming meetings, public meetings, project progress. And you can also, anytime on the website, leave a question or comment. In addition to the website and public meetings, we do have, of course, social media. So if you're somebody who likes to be reminded of things that you need to check out from social media, you can follow us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and we do have, as I said, a YouTube channel where all public and PAC meetings are recorded and available for public review. Next, please. So Title VI is a federal law that mandates that no person shall, on the basis of race, color, or national origin, be excluded from participation or subject to discrimination in the development of this or any project. If you would like to learn more about your civil rights related to this, Title VI, you can a flyer that has much more detail. It can be accessed on ConnDOT's website, and the link is here. And this presentation will be on New Mix website, so you can go there and access this link there. Finally, there is a short demographic survey that we welcome you to take. That's the top link. It's voluntary, but it would be appreciated if you would consider taking it. It also asks some questions about your thoughts about the meeting and the presentation. Next, please. So now I'd like to turn it over to David.
Okay, thank you, Anna. Next slide, please. Just to give a little context and historic history on the development of the Mixmaster. What's on the screen there, that's a picture of the Mixmaster today. North is to the top of the screen. Route 8 is running up and down across the page, pretty much paralleling the Naugatuck River, while 84 is running left to right across your page. And as you can see, this kind of divided the city of Waterbury into quadrants. And this created a little bit of a loss of connectivity. And as there's a reliance more on personal automobiles, adds to recurring traffic congestion. Next slide, please. So the Mixmaster was built over a series of projects over a 20-year span at a cost of about $48 million. This picture is looking at 84, looking east toward the South Elm Street Bridge with the Our Lady of Lourdes Church and Sacred Heart High School off to the left. Next slide, please. Since then, though, there have been many rehab projects out there on the Mixmaster, including the current ongoing rehab project that's out there. With this project, we've replaced the decks on Route 8 northbound and southbound, and we've done a lot of steel strengthening and repairs and a lot of deck rehabilitation. And the goal of this project is to add 25 years of service life to the Mixmaster until we can get into replacing it with the new mix. And to provide an overview of the new mix, I'm going to hand it over to Jake.
Thanks, David. So if you go to next slide, this map shows the area in blue of the study area that we're including in the overall reconstruction study. Why did we do that? We wanted to examine a wider range of design options that exist beyond just the core of the interchange. So if you go to the next slide, we wanted to evaluate considerations in the study area that included the entrance and exit limits, the interchange itself, the major arterial intersections, the local road network, as well as cultural and historic resources within this larger study area. And on the next slide, we're going to talk about the long-term future known as the new mix. So the new mix program is in its early phase of determining the solution for the overall interchange for I-84 and Route 8 as it reaches the end of its serviceable lifespan, which is in approximately 2045. It's anticipated that this is going to be phased over a number of projects over a longer period of time, with an overall goal that's going to help modernize, improve safety, the functionality of the interchange itself, and reduce congestion, all while aligning the project with the city's economic development and community goals. Next slide. So the types of projects that we're initially looking at. The phased project approach is being done so that this will allow the state to more preparation and more effective distribution of funding for this and other major projects in the state. It also helps to lessen the traffic impacts during construction over that period of time as well, by reducing the volumes jumping on and off of the interstate. Let me get into that in a minute. So we're going to do that starting with early action projects. So the early action projects, these are the projects that have independent utility, meaning they're not directly linked to the full replacement of the project, but they're enabling projects that are going to help improve deficiencies of local roads as well as highway deficiencies that these can be introduced early on. They're going to help reduce volumes from using the interchange, meaning jumping on and jumping off to get across town. The near-term projects are another type of project that we're looking at. And these are actually tied and linked to the overall replacement or reconstruction of the interchange. They can be initiated long before the full core of the interchange is replaced. But again, that phased approach helps alleviate some of that burden, the financial burden on the state, as well as lessen the traffic impacts within the city. Then the long-term project. The long-term project, that's the overall goal. That is to reconstruct the I-84 Route 8 interchange system. That includes all of the system connections, and that is intended to be completed by the mid-2040s. And again, this project focuses on that core of the interchange. So let me hand it over to Naomi Hodges, and she's going to walk through the process that we're using to study this, known as PEL.
Thank you, Jake. So as noted earlier, the New Mix program's future project is not slated until the 2040s. So, however, a project of this size and complexity necessitates, planning well in advance of its projected start. So right now, the New Mix is in its initial early planning process, and that process that we are using is called the Planning and Environmental Linkages study process. Before I get into my part of the presentation, I'd like to show a video to start explaining a little more about the PEL process.
The life cycle of a transportation project begins with the transportation planning process and is followed by environment, design, right-of-way, construction, ending with maintenance and operations. The traveling public and taxpayers are challenging agencies to accelerate the project delivery process and improve efficiency without compromising public input, safety, and environmental laws. Planning and environment linkages, known as PEL, promote the use of the information, analyses, and products developed during the transportation planning process to inform the environmental review process, including the National Environmental Policy Act, or NEPA. This collaborative and integrated approach leads to better environmental results, considers environmental, community, and economic goals early in transportation decision-making, and helps decrease project cost, schedule times, and redundant efforts.
Okay, so this video that we saw was put together by the Federal Highway Administration. The PEL process, PEL, or Planning and Environmental Linkages process, is a federally recognized process. And what that does is the PEL studies establishes tools to provide a pathway for early collaboration and coordination and accelerated project delivery. So as mentioned in that video we showed, the PEL process informs our NEPA process. NEPA stands for the Environmental National Policy Act. We call this the umbrella environmental law. Through NEPA, an environmental document is developed which discloses any environmental consequences or impacts related to the project, as well as what an agency, so in this case it'd be Connecticut DOT, and in partnership with the Federal Highway Administration, can do in order to avoid or minimize those impacts. This document will also provide evidence of compliance with any other applicable environmental law. And I do want to stress here that the PEL process links the planning process to the NEPA process. We will say, and we'll say this throughout the presentation, that the PEL process is considered to be pre-NEPA. It occurs before the NEPA process, but it does not replace it. So after this PEL process is over, we will go into NEPA, where that environmental document will be created. So in order to initiate this PEL study process for the New Mix in our future program, the project team developed a framework and methodology document, and that describes our use of the PEL study so that it meets those agency requirements in addition to expediting those transportation program deliveries for the Mixed Master Interchange. The framework and methodology report formalizes the scope of our Pell study, has the anticipated schedule and the expected outcomes for our Pell process. The framework also outlines guiding principles. Jake did mention some of them, and I'll reiterate that a few more, but those guiding principles include minimizing disruption to the community, producing efficient and cost-effective solutions. We want to support the local, regional, and statewide transportation plans, and also be in harmony with the surrounding area and seen as an enduring community enhancement. I do want to mention that this draft document is currently available on our website, on our web page, for anyone who would like to take a look at it and read through it and develop more of a stronger understanding of what the process is in more detail. So for the purposes of this presentation, our framework was translated into a flowchart schedule where we have identified several milestones as key elements to ensure the success of our Pell study for the new mix. And I'll break that down for you all here. It begins with identifying the transportation needs and deficiencies. Those are the deficiencies and problems that we are experiencing currently and potentially future on the I-84 and Route 8 interchange. The second is determining the purpose of our Pell study and the goal of our Pell study itself. The third is developing the purpose and need and goals and objectives of the eventual project that will occur once this Pell process is complete and the NEPA process is complete as well. Then we go into developing that evaluation criteria for evaluating any conceptual alternatives, which we are also considered potential solutions at this point in time for those problems that we are experiencing on the interchange. We will then evaluate and screen those alternatives or through a screening process, which we will also go through at a future public information meeting. And then finally, the final step of this Pell process is documenting the results of the Pell, documenting everything that has occurred throughout our coordination and the study phase. And we'll complete a Pell to NEPA transition report. And that creates that NEPA roadmap. And that's really that connection of this planning process to the NEPA phase that is anticipated for 2023. A big item I do want to mention is that public involvement, outreach will occur and continue to occur throughout this Pell study process, and then also continue into the future processes. That includes NEPA, and then ultimately, construction and other items that are a little bit further down the line, but as we are in this very early process. In the next section, as a group, we will go through some of the items that we have gone through with the Pell study thus far. So we'll explain some of the progress that has occurred and provide some detail behind that. And with that, I will hand it over to my colleague, Chris, who will give you that overview.
Thanks, Naomi. So like Anna had said before, and Naomi just now, we're in the middle of this Pell study that we've defined. And to give you a progress update, we're going to take the flow chart that she just showed and stretch it out into a timeline so that we can go through each step in succession. So the project advisory committee has been actively participating and contributing to this study since around fall of 2021. We have shared many of the study materials that have been produced with them, but today we want to summarize our progress in the study thus far for you. Each of the study steps here that we've gone through between initiation and today represent a lot of work, discussion, and documentation that we want public feedback on. While significant progress has been made during each of these steps, I want to mention that nothing has been finalized because we are still in the process of soliciting public feedback, your feedback. To make it all manageable for today, we're going to be staying at a very high level, and we will be highlighting resources on the New Mix website for those of you who are interested in finding out more about each study step and possibly providing your input. So moving on, the first step that we defined for the New Mix Pell study was identification of transportation needs and deficiencies. In this step, our team began to define the transportation problem that the New Mix project is trying to solve. By studying transportation issues in the project area, we identified what we called needs and deficiencies. These needs and deficiencies or transportation issues were identified by performing investigations that included data collection and review of traffic volumes, existing plans, and crash data. Traffic analyses were also performed using computer simulations to help the team understand current traffic performance and to predict traffic issues in a future design year, that 2045 year that we've been referring to throughout this presentation. We also gathered information on the study area's community and environmental context features for future use during development of interchange reconstruction concepts. The final activity in this step is documenting all the collected data and analysis results in a comprehensive report. This report is called the Analysis Needs and Deficiency Report. It documents this step of the study, and it's available for public review on the New Mix website's document library. The report was written for a public audience, but it's very detailed and lengthy. So the slides that follow, we're going to try and summarize that report for you. Moving right in, if you were to open the report, you would find details of the Mixmaster's transportation issues as they were identified by our team. We, as a study team, organized these transportation issues into 3 categories of structural, geometric, and operational deficiencies. Starting off with the first category, the structural category consists of bridge deficiencies in the study area. At the time of data collection, 60% of study area bridges were in poor physical condition when measured by deck area. Now, please note, poor condition does not indicate that a bridge is unsafe. However, it means that maintenance, rehabilitation, or replacement is required. In fact, the ongoing Mixmaster rehabilitation project will substantially improve the interchange bridge conditions by its completion. But that project is only meant to extend the service lives of these interchange bridges out through the year 2045. By 2045, it is expected that additional bridge rehabilitations or replacements will be required to keep the Mixmaster structures in a state of good repair. The bridge deck needs of the stacked I-84 structure are of particular interest. Complete replacement of these bridge decks has not been attempted because of the traffic delays that it would introduce on I-84. As a result, most of the stacked I-84 bridge decks are original 1960s construction, and this is something that will need to be addressed in the New Mix project. Taken together, structural needs are a primary reason for why the New Mix Pell study is being performed and why 2045 was selected as the study's future design year. Moving on to the next category of needs are geometric needs, which include deficiencies of the I-84 and Route 8 highways in the study area. Roadway geometrics include things like shoulder widths and horizontal alignments and vertical profiles. And all of these characteristics significantly affect the capacity and safety of a roadway network. The Mixmaster's geometric deficiencies were identified by comparing its geometry with modern highway design criteria. While the interchange was innovative for its time and conformed to the standards of its time, highway design has continued to evolve since the 1960s. So in this picture here, we're looking east along I-84 at downtown Waterbury. Certain features that you can see here, like left-hand entrances and exits or closely spaced ramps, just aren't desirable in modern highway designs. And the narrow shoulders that are throughout the interchange are a source of driver discomfort. These deficiencies, they result in speed differentials between vehicles with maneuvering, weaving, merging, diverging, and they've only become more notable as vehicle top speeds and traffic volumes have increased. A detailed accounting of all of the geometric deficiencies that our team identified can be found in that analysis needs and deficiency report that's on the website. Addressing these geometric deficiencies is another high priority for the New Mix project. Next slide, okay. And the last transportation needs category is for operational deficiencies, which includes all of the traffic related issues on the Mixmaster interchange and the surrounding local roadway network. The highway and local roadway networks in Waterbury function together as a highly complex transportation system. An analysis of both networks was required to completely understand study area traffic operations. Most of the issues that our team identified are outcomes of increasing traffic volume. And this graphic that's shown here shows the traffic volume growth at the Mixmaster over time. The traffic volume using the interchange today is nearly twice that of what it was originally designed for. That is in excess of about 95,000 vehicles per day. By the project's 2045 design year, the overcapacity traffic volume is projected to increase by 40% to about 225,000 vehicles per day. Next slide. Our team established the future traffic volumes by collecting traffic data and developing various computer simulations and models. In addition to predicting traffic volumes, these models, like the ones that being shown here, these help quantify traffic performance levels under differing conditions. The models that the team produced show a marked increase in operationally deficient highway segments and roadway intersections by the year 2045, which is a significant future need. Details of all the operationally deficient facilities within the study area can also be found in the project's Analysis Needs and Deficiencies report. Another aspect of traffic operations are safety conditions. The team studied crash data for the project area to understand the factors that are causing crashes. And we noted that on I-84 specifically, the crash rate was about 30% higher than the statewide average for all roads. This high crash rate contributes to non-recurring traffic delays on I-84. And it's significant because crash rates for highways are typically expected to be lower than the statewide average. It should be noted that this data was collected before the I-84 widening project was completed, and that it may have been influenced by construction at the eastern study limit. So it's very likely that crash density has changed now that there are 3 continuous lanes in each direction of 84. Moving on, the final activity in this step was developing a thorough understanding of the multimodal facilities and environmental and community features in the project area. We do this because our team wants to understand how the roadway network interfaces with bicycle, pedestrian, and transit modes within the study area, so we can identify opportunities to enhance or complement each of these. For instance, there will likely be opportunities to improve the pedestrian and bicyclist experience at overpasses like the one that's shown in this little picture here. Another aspect of area context are the built and natural environments. How the Mixmaster interchange fits in these environments will inform future development of project concepts or alternatives, as we call them. The team performed research and sought community input to help develop our understanding of community context. And we received that input from stakeholders, the project advisory committee, and through a website poll, so that we could identify features of significance like parks, landmarks, and other important community resources. We're also looking to get more of that input from you today. Finally, a thorough desktop study was performed to document the environmental features in the study area that make up the natural environment, such as rivers, wetlands, and species of concern. The results of all of these investigations are in that analysis report that is available on the NewMix website. Last but not least, for this study step, did want to note that a presentation, a very robust one, on this whole needs and deficiencies of the interchange was provided to the project advisory committee in December of 2021. And that presentation is available for viewing through a link to a YouTube video that is on the website's project advisory committee materials page. So anyone who's interested to consume this data in more detail can see that information at that link. So now Naomi is going to continue on with the next study step. Naomi.
Thank you, Chris. So the next study step was to determine the purpose of our Pell study and our goal of the Pell study itself. So with that, the Connecticut Department of Transportation developed this visioning statement for the Pell study. And that visioning statement is on the screen, and I'll read through it with you all. The Connecticut Department of Transportation desires to establish a vision or master plan for the interchange that is articulated as a prioritized plan for the phased implementation of improvements. With that, the overarching goal of the Pell study is to develop a clear and supported plan of action for addressing deficiencies at the ID4 and Route 8 interchange and study area. At the conclusion of the Pell study, we hope to have that goal with once this Pell study is complete. We'll have that plan of action. This visioning statement is very broad. It does need to get broken down a little bit more, and how we've done that is through developing that purpose, need, and goals and objectives, which was the next step. So just to give some background information on what a purpose and need statement is, we consider it to be the foundation of the decision-making process. It establishes that basis for the development of conceptual alternatives or potential solutions, as we call it, that can be further developed through what we are using the Pell study, and then further developed during the NEPA process. The statement will play a significant role during our Pell study, as we will be using it to screen where alternatives, where decisions will be made for dismissing fatally flawed or any unreasonable conceptual alternatives that are identified during this Pell study. The purpose and need statement can be broken down into 3 parts. And the first part will be the what. These are the needs part of the purpose and need. What the transportation issues and problems need to be addressed. That was identified by Chris, very high level that we just went through, those transportation needs. The second part is the why. Why is the project being proposed? We identify the transportation solution. That is the purpose of our project. And then the third aspect of a purpose and need statement are the intended or desired outcomes of the project. We call those our goals and objectives. Once the project is complete, how do we want the interchange to look and function with the community and the environment around it? What improvements can be made? We are in this very early conceptual planning phase right now, and we are seeking input on this preliminary purpose and need statement that we are using for the Pell study. We do want input from the public and other members who utilize the interchange and live within the area. This preliminary purpose and need statement will be used during our Pell study process, and then, as I mentioned, further refined during this Pell study and then into the NEPA process. We do have a draft preliminary purpose and need statement report that's on the website, but first I'd like to provide a brief introduction to the draft purpose and need statement that we have developed thus far. With input from stakeholders, the public, and the PAC, this is our drafted preliminary purpose and need statement, starting with our needs. So those problems, those are the major transportation deficiencies that have been identified through the data collection and analysis that we have done at the project initiation. The purpose or those identified solutions are to improve those deficiencies. We want to do what we can to improve or correct those identified transportation deficiencies. That would be the purpose of our project. And then the third is the goals and objectives, so those intended outcomes. These have been developed in conjunction with the input that we have received thus far. I do want to mention that these goals and objectives are not listed in any particular order. They have been updated to incorporate the input that we have received from stakeholders and the PAC as well. And I'd like to highlight just a few of the goals and objectives that we have incorporated through that input. And that includes reducing the crash rates, providing connections to the Naugatuck River and the Greenway that will go through the city of Waterbury, improving the local road roadway network so that the roadway and the highway system can function more effectively and efficiently, supporting the city's revitalization goals for the central business district, as well as avoiding, minimizing, or mitigating any potential project consequences or impacts to the environment. And as Chris highlighted, the environment does not just mean the natural resources such as, the Naugatuck River and the Mad River. It also includes historic resources, parks, open spaces, and other places like that. So these are just a few of the goals and objectives, and we do want input on from you all on these goals and objectives to see if there's anything that we could add here that's transportation related and how we can incorporate it into this project and use it for the New Mix program. I do want to mention that the purpose and need statement can be further refined as our Pell study progresses. More information will be made available, more data will be identified, more communication with the public and stakeholders will occur, and that will allow us to refine and shape this purpose and need statement more as we go through this process. We are going to meet with other agencies, state and federal, to get input as well. And this purpose and need statement can be used into NEPA, but it's likely going to be refined as once this Pell process is complete and we make it into the NEPA process. So where does that leave us? I'll go through the next steps. You've heard me say it and other people in this presentation say it, but we really do we are really seeking that feedback from the public. Today is the 16th, and we are looking for comments back from and feedback back from you all, from the public, in 2 weeks from now. So before at the end of the month, whatever input you have, feedback on the information that we have briefly gone over during this meeting, the reports are on the website. And I'd also like to highlight that there is a survey on the website where we are seeking input on the goals and objectives and other aspects of the New Mix program right now. And you can find that on the Contact Us page. Looking ahead, after we receive that input, the next steps for the project team would be taking in that information, refining and finalizing that purpose and need statement, refining the evaluation criteria, and developing conceptual alternatives based on the input that we receive. We will use that to evaluate and then ultimately make those screening decisions. As a little sneak peek, the next steps also includes refining that screening process. So at the next meeting, we will present this process in a little bit more detail in the evaluation process, as well as the concepts that we have developed thus far for our Pell study. And with that, I'll hand it over to Anna to discuss some of the upcoming meetings.
So our next public meeting is anticipated to occur in the late summer, and it will go over the topics Naomi just mentioned, including finalizing the purpose and need with the public input we have received from the surveys and from your feedback. The third public meeting is anticipated to occur in the fall, and that will include presenting the results of the level 1 screening of various replacement options and present the level 2 evaluation criteria, of course, to elicit input from the public. In the meantime, next slide. Please, again, I can't stress it enough, feel free to check out our website, our social media. Our website, again, you can leave a question, comment anytime, and subscribe to get email updates, including notices of the next meetings. And the feedback we want, of course, on today's meeting, or the topics covered on today's meeting. But if helpful, I would suggest looking at this slide when providing your comments, because we would like to know, how do you feel about this draft purpose and needs statement? What do you agree with or maybe not agree with? Is there something or some things you feel are missing? So don't have to refer to this, but if it's helpful, please do. We definitely want your feedback. So with that, I will turn it back over to Condot's Jonathan Dean to open the question and comment section portion of the meeting.
Great, thanks, Hannah. So if anybody has any questions or comments, I'd like to invite you to please raise your hand if you'd like to speak, or you can always insert comments in the chat and we will get to them as we receive them. I see Alderman Michael Salvio provided a comment here about reducing the left-hand exits and the number of on-ramps and off-ramps. So that's definitely, a goal that we have. We may not be able to eliminate every left-hand ramp, but if they do remain in the future, they would be adequately spaced and certainly in a better configuration than they are now. But those are very important goals of ours. Lawrence, you have some questions. Please feel free to unmute.
I'm unmuted. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. About 10 years ago, there was a proposal to lay the Route 84 interchange side by side. That was abandoned after myself, others had major concerns regarding that. So hopefully this is not going to be the dusted off version of what was proposed 10 years ago. I understand you're concerned about the cost to the state of maintaining the two-deck system. However, you have to understand that laying the highway down side by side took more than $150 million worth of taxable properties off the city's tax rolls. And the highway department does not reimburse the city of Waterbury 1 penny once those highways are completed. And once those properties are gone, they're gone forever. I believe that there's no reason why, if you want to expand this to 4 lanes, the answer that was given was they were concerned about the highway in an earthquake zone with the construction of the 2 decks. I don't remember any major earthquakes here in Connecticut that would bring those 2 decks down. But certainly, if there's a proposal, it should be to replace or expand those 2 decks in place. It's done in New York, it's done in New Jersey, it's done in Pennsylvania. There's no reason why it cannot be done in Connecticut. So my concern is regarding all the taxable properties that would come off the tax rolls, never to be back on again, if this highway was laid down side by side. Furthermore, you have to look at the fact that Waterbury's in a bowl. And the upper deck, when you're driving on the top deck to going westward, you're actually at a level. And if you were to lay that highway down on the ground, you've got a major hill to climb. All you have to do is go on that second deck and look at the Highland Avenue Bridge, which is probably another 50 feet in the air above the second deck of that bridge to bring the road level. You'd be having such a downhill situation that in the winter time, you're worried about accidents. You haven't seen accidents unless you lay that thing side by side on the ground. So from a topography situation here in Waterbury, being the fact that the downtown is in a bowl, it makes more sense to have this double deck bridge than it does to ever lay this thing on the ground. Also, you talked about the accidents. You talk about Route 84. I hope if you're talking about accidents, you're only talking about the Waterbury line to the Waterbury line. Because if you're going to talk about accidents on 84, I believe you'll find that there are very few accidents actually on the Mixmaster. Most of the accidents occur at exit 16 in Middlebury or down when passed into the Cheshire Suddington section of 84. So I'd be very interested to know what the actual accidents were on the Mixmaster itself, because last time we looked, it was very small compared to the accidents total on 84. As far as the off and on ramps go, yes, I agree. They have to be totally redesigned. There's no question about that. But the other concern is, it seems that, you know, you talk about Waterbury and the downtown and whatnot, but the purpose here is not to bring the traffic into Waterbury. The purpose here is to bring the traffic through Waterbury as fast as possible, at as high a speed as possible, between Hartford and Danbury. And that's what ultimately was admitted 10 years ago by the Connecticut Department of Transportation. This was not about enhancing the ability of people to get onto the highway or off the highway to get to Waterbury's businesses. It was to have the local people on local roads and those people traveling from Hartford to Danbury to let them get there as fast as they possibly could. So when you talk about enhancing the community, I don't see how giving Waterbury residents less access to the highway or giving the people who are on the highway less access to get into Waterbury is enhancing Waterbury at all. So those are just some of my comments. I'd be very interested to see what the final design is. I thought the whole idea about the earthquake was a canard in order to lay this thing down, because the state of Connecticut was not willing to put the kind of maintenance costs into a double-decker bridge than it would on a bridge that's laid down. But I don't believe anybody has really looked hard at the topography of Waterbury to see, you lay that thing down, how you're going to climb from downtown to Middlebury without going up a very steep hill. So those are only some of my comments.
Great. Thank you, Lawrence. No, I think you summed up a lot of the challenges that we're dealing with here very well. So we've got, like you said, we've got the ridge line moving from west to east, where the western part of Waterbury is at a higher elevation than the east side. We've got a very constrained corridor, and you can see why those bridges were originally constructed in a stacked nature. I do want to stress that at this point in our study, you know, everything's still on the table. We're still looking at ways to minimize impacts to the surrounding area while being able to address these structures that once we get to 2045, they're going to be a good 80 years old. So I do want to get to, we have a couple more comments here. And I would like to say, Lawrence, we have some good information on our website. If you'd like to look at our needs and deficiencies study there, you can really dive into the details of the crash history out there. And you know, there's some good info that we have. So please feel free to peruse that. Adam Weber had a question about our future traffic volumes. So he's asking, our 2020 needs and deficiencies report is showing that we're expecting a significant increase in vehicles that are going to be using the interchange 2045. So you know, that's a really good question, because as he mentions, there have been some goals made by the governor's office and Connecticut DOT to reduce vehicle miles traveled in the coming years. And so our projections come from basically demographic, that we have a traffic model that looks at demographics and population growth, commuting, trips and things like that. And so that's where we got our volumes from for 2045. It's, you know, when you're looking that far out, there's a lot of assumptions that you have to make. And, you know, we will be updating and making sure our data is timely. This is going to be a long process. So as we move forward, we're going to be making sure that any developments that might change travel patterns are accounted for. Jason is asking when will draft plans be available for public review. So we actually do have on the website, I believe right now, there's, we're looking at, basically right now it's what's called the universe of alternatives. So we're looking at every option is on the table right now, from rehabilitation of this mix master in 2045 to some various conceptual realignments. And so we're at a very conceptual nature right now. They're not going to be detailed plans. They're going to be kind of more or less lines on a page. But again, please feel free to visit our website, and we're going to be presenting those at future public meetings and asking for public comment as we move forward. So I just want to, you know, reiterate that we're not going to be cutting off, you know, this isn't going to be your only chance. And so they're, like to apologize, they're not on the website yet, but they will be in time for the next public meeting. So we're coming up with ways to show those concepts in ways that can be easily digested. And Jason further asks, when in 2023 is the PELS expected to be completed? And so we're looking at probably mid next year. And again, that's going to be, the PELS study will be complete, and we're going to be moving into further study under the National Environmental Policy Act. So once again, there's going to be a lot of opportunity for public comment.
Hey, John,
Does anybody-
just to add to your answer to Lawrence there. Access to and from Waterbury, that is a very important with the design team, and it's something that we are looking to enhance. And then also, as far as the crash history goes, the crash history that was studied for this, and that's what's contained within the report there, is within the study limits of our project here that was shown in an earlier slide that Jake spoke to. So just a little further clarification for you.
Okay, so, you know, if any questions come to mind, please feel free to, once again, you can visit our webpage and find all the information that we have there. You'll find links to provide us comments. So, you know, if something comes to mind after you hang up on this call, we'll still be accepting comments. We also have our project email. It's thenewmixwaterbury@gmail.com.
Richard Atchison, are you looking to make, are you asking a question? I'm seeing, it looks like Richard's trying to ask a question, John, but he appears to be on mute.
Sorry, Richard, we're not able to hear you.
Yes, is that any better?
Oh, we got you now.
Yes, I'd like to know why they can't go back to the original design where it stayed farther south in the middle of Middlebury before exit 17 and ended up somewheres out by exit 24. You could have a straight through route and have a business exit as they do down south.
Yeah, yeah, like I said, that's, something that we may consider. There are challenges with constructing new highway and we still have the existing structures to maintain, but like I said, we're really looking at everything right now.
Well, it could be a lot less traffic on the existing Mixmaster if that was just a business route for Waterbury itself.
Great, thank you. Are there any further comments? Well, thank you again, everybody, for taking time out of your day. We really appreciate it. And we know everybody's busy and, we're excited about this study and, we're looking far out in the future, but as Jake mentioned, we're also looking at some projects that can occur sooner and that'll help out Waterbury and the surrounding area in the coming years. So we're going to have a lot to show you as we move forward. Okay, thank you again, everyone.